Trying out a slightly different camera angle this time. Not sure if it's working. Welcome back, everybody, to yet another campaign diary where I have no clue what I'm doing. But I want to talk about Daggerheart. I want to talk about my experience running Daggerheart. I want to talk about what that's been like so far. We had our second session fairly recently, and I'm excited to talk about it. So picking up where we left off last time, actually, you know what? Not where we picked up last time. I want to talk briefly about something I tried out in the first session, and I'll try it out again in the second session. I didn't bring it up last video because I honestly wasn't sure at the time if I was going to keep doing it. When I ran my first mini-series campaign, I tried out this thing where I wanted to have a somewhat intense scene to sort of like build into the start of the first session. It was a campaign set around a war, and so one of the characters had a traumatic past involving that war, and so I started off with a dream sequence of that character remembering that experience in the war. And so the start of the campaign would have been that character waking up from that dream, or rather that nightmare. And I wanted to kind of try something similar this time around, not quite explicitly frame it as a dream this time, but I wanted a strong hook to get my players interested. So I did this thing where I opened on technically a flashback to a character's backstory, but I tried to do it from the perspective of an NPC that would have been involved in that backstory, and to see the impact that character's backstory had on someone more regular, so to speak. And so I did that. I then cut to that character in that first session waking up, and that was how that session began. But as I started to think about how to start the second session and how to sort of recap last time, I thought it might be interesting if I was able to do the same thing I did last time with a kind of flashback, and also kind of fold that into a session recap. So if you remember, when last we left our adventurers, last session they were chased down by a gang of Galapa. They sort of acted like these Italian New York mob bosses, and they chased down the party to the outskirts of the city of Norisho, and they were chasing them because they were hunting down a member of the party, or the newly formed party, that is. They were hunting down Deadeye Jack, my friend Jacob's Furbolg Ranger character. And so I thought it might be interesting if I did a flashback to open the second session that focused in on that Galapa gang, to the people that Deadeye Jack had crossed in the past, and as such wanted revenge on him. And so, in hoping to recap why they were in this situation, I gave a little bit more insight into what those Galapa were like after their plan was foiled, after they were stopped by Deadeye Jack, and to see why they wanted to go after him in the first place. So that's how I opened the second session. It seemed to be successful. My players liked it. So I think next session I'm probably going to keep doing the flashback thing. At the very least, I'll keep doing it until I do a flashback dedicated to each of the players. The first one was dedicated to Tulash. This one was dedicated to Deadeye Jack. So there's Micah and there's Jay, and if I decide to do more after that, I'm not sure, but that's where I'm at the moment. But since they were chased to the outskirts of the city of Norisho, and they were stopped by the raging river in front of them, I wasn't using the raging river stat block for this yet. That might be for a later session. But I decided to have them sort of like stop by that. Of course, it didn't actually stop Tulash because he could just kind of fly right over it. But for the others, the river was a big deal. They couldn't really move past it. So so in trying to escape the shellheads, they were rather unsuccessful. And so a battle ensued, a combat, if you will. I am a pretty experienced dungeon master when it comes to D&D, and I haven't really explored other systems, not thoroughly at least. This is Daggerheart is my first foray into such a thing, but I was very excited to try out combat in this system, and my players were a little bit more trepidatious, let's say. I know at the very least Brian and my brother Jacob, they were not quite sure how an initiative-less combat would work. And so I like to think that since it was all of our first time running in this system, and I think, as far as the other players in the campaign that have tried other systems, I don't think they've ever done an initiative-less system. So, being our first experience with anything like this, I like to think that we were all kind of like there for each other. I've done a lot of reading on the rules myself, and so I was there to sort of like back up whatever they were doing, whatever they were trying to accomplish combat-wise, and so they caught on pretty quick. I do think I saw in real time something that I remember seeing Ashley Johnson talk about after, I think, one of the playtest one-shots when they were doing the Menagerie on Critical Role, where like she said that she was very worried about the initiative list system, and it was just this kind of idea that like once the combat gets going, once the ball gets rolling, once somebody takes that first step, uh, other players that might be a bit more quiet and less forward at the table might have more incentive to try to jump in when they see what other players are doing with this with the opportunity to just kind of jump in whenever they want. Other players that are less forward like that might be more interested, and I think I really saw that, especially with my friend Brian and my brother Jacob, who really, like I said, weren't as sure of the initiative list system. That said, it does take a second to get the ball rolling. That is one thing that I do think we kind of struggled with at first when it came to entering this battle, was just getting someone to act first. Because unless I'm spending fear, which I wasn't trying to do early on, I wanted to really set the stage of the shellheads sort of closing in on the party. I wanted to make sure that that threat was present, and that the very clear idea that they were not going to back down would have entice someone to act first. I do forget at this point who acted first, because, like I said, once it got going, everybody was in on it, and it was a great combat. It was a great time. That said, it was a combat, I do admit, that they were supposed to lose. That my, as a GM, my brain as a GM expected them to not be as sure of the system, and I did set up a combat that was a bit scaled in my favor. And I did have a lot of fear to start the session with. I started the session with 9 fear. So I had a lot going for me. Essentially, the idea was that I was going to get the party in a position where the shellheads were going to throw a number of them into the river, and the river would sweep them away, and the rest would follow. Either they would jump in themselves, they would run after the river, they would run away from the combat, was kind of the idea. It did take a lot more beating on the players than I had initially anticipated. But they did get there eventually, and I did end up spending a lot of my fear throughout that section of the session. There was one odd case where Jay, if you'll recall, our Clank character, Jay was sort of left behind by a lot of them, as they were all as two of the characters, Micah and Deadeye Jack, had fallen in the river. Chulosh was chasing after them, and Jay was sort of left behind as most of the Galapa were downed. One of them was running away because now the authorities from Narisha were exiting the city to try to find the gang, and chasing after them. Jay was trying to stay behind to sort out the situation, and I had to make it very clear to Jay as a character that, no, you are associated with the Galapa. They're aware of your presence, and as such, they're going to chase you down. And one of them did shoot Jay with a crossbow, and so then my brother got the idea. He was like, okay, I'm gonna run out of there. I'm gonna get going. It was, I'll admit, I think a tiny bit of railroading on my part, but one that I think, in this case, where the campaign is so early days and the party is just starting to get to know each other, I have to kind of put them in positions, I feel at least, where they're going to be able to find each other the easiest and be able to succeed as a group. And getting them to actually know each other and put them in positions where they have to be together is a key part of that. So keeping them together like that was very important. Our newly formed party then found themselves found by a local Simia woman by the name of Dasso. She was able to get Jack out of the river, and as such help Micah as well, sort of pull them all out of there. And after the insane beating the party had taken, they had lost a lot of hit points, taken a bit of stress throughout the combat. Dasso had offered them a place to stay in her village nearby. It is worth noting at this time that I did give a name to this campaign. I don't usually like naming my campaigns until the party has formed and until the group has a name, but I found this one, when it comes to mini-series campaigns, I like to actually name the campaign going in, because I like to give them a clear goal going forward. So this campaign I had called, in our Dagger Stack page for the campaign, I had called it The Taking of Endoris. Endoris is, in this case, the name of the village that Dasso was taking the party to. And I think at that point, there's something to be said for lightly foreshadowing on a meta level what your players at least are going to expect going into a session. So when they hear the name Mauricio, suddenly the players are locked in and they know they have to pay attention, because they know the name of the campaign has something to do with this village, and in going there, they are going to have to pay attention, because things are going to become very important here. Narisha was a starting place. Narisha is where we had to get out of. It's a way to bring the characters together, but Endoris is where things are going to really start happening, and we're going to get plot hooks, and we're going to get into all that fun stuff now. Players were also not rolling the best this whole session, and that, in addition to the long rest they took when they decided to stay in the village of Endoris for the night, was I maxed out my fear. I had so much fear by the end of this session. I am starting next session with max fear. I cannot go above 12. So they're going to start traveling next session, and it's going to be a lot because I'm going to have a lot of options at my disposal, and I think I have some fun ideas for what they can encounter along the way. But while they were in Endoris, they met a number of other Simia that were part of this village. It's a village made up entirely of Simia. They met Dasso's mother, Mother Gilsep, who is the sort of matriarch of the village. They met Dasso's son, Komar, a number of other Simia throughout there, but those were the three big ones. The ones that are all part of the same family were the core group of Simia that they were staying with. They offered to go out and hunt for the village as they were low on food and supplies at this time. So there was a sequence where Jack, Micah, and Tulash went out into the forest, hunted a deer for them, brought it back to the village. Had a lot of fun running that, actually. I hadn't run, like, I guess more mundane survival instincts in Daggerheart yet, so that was fun to sort of get my hands on. I ran it sort of like a skill check in D&D. I had all the players describe how they were looking for game for things to hunt, and based on how well they rolled, sort of like using the countdown system, the scale of failure with fear, failure with hope, success with fear, and success with hope, and then of course a critical success. Sort of using that scale to determine what they were able to find and how successful they were. So, but Jay did stay behind. Jay stayed in Endoris, and while Jay was there, he discovered a number of odd things about Endoris, namely that there seemed to be, at least at the time, no adult men in the village. There were women, children, there were young boys, but no men. And this had a lot to do with the sort of like hunter-gatherer setup of Endoris as a village. And on returning to the village, the rest of the party had learned this as well. A number of the women in Endoris do believe that the men have been taken. They've been taken to a city by the name of Prosnia, beyond the mountains to the north. With winter incoming, they fear that they would not survive the winter. They fear the village will not survive at all without the people that usually hunt for the village. So the party now actually working together as a party, which is nice. Not fully trusting each other yet. They still don't know each other all that well, but they have spent a bit more time in Endoris and have gotten to know each other through that time. They have offered to go to the city of Prosnia to hopefully try to find out what has happened to the men of the village of Endoris. The people that believe that the men were taken by the people of Prosnia believe that the people of Prosnia are devil worshippers of some kind. They believe that they are using these men for some sort of sacrifice, but there are those in the village that are not quite as skeptical, and they believe that while they can't fully explain the men disappearing from the village, that there must be some other reason. Surely there isn't some malicious intent behind it. But, as of right now, Prosnia is their best bet. With that, I did also give the party a full map of Anathor at this time, which is the nation where this is all taking place in. We've got a number of key locations here, places where certain characters are from. Obviously, the key locations where the adventure is taking place. So this is all very cool. I really like putting this together, and actually being able to show this to my players was very nice. But that is where the session began to close out, with the promise of going to Prosnia to investigate the disappearances of these hunters, these men that usually look after the village. We'll probably have a session or two of travel on the way to Prosnia. I have some really fun things in mind for that I hope my players will greatly enjoy. I got to use all this fear somehow. I do have 12 fear, and I'm so excited about that. So yeah, I guess that'll be what my next campaign diary video is mostly about, is running travel in Daggerheart. That'll be very exciting to talk about. I hope it goes well. Yeah, and I hope you're excited for it. I'm so glad, first off, for the support I've gotten on the first campaign diary that I did. Truly, it was great to see it actually get some decent views for a brand new channel that just kind of came out of nowhere. Truly, thanks for supporting that. Thanks for checking it out. And I don't know, I hope you continue to check out more. At the very least, I'll keep doing this campaign diary. I'm not sure what else I have planned for this channel. If you have other kind of Daggerhearty TTRPG videos that you'd like to see from me, let me know in the comments below. I would love to know what you might like to see from me. I truly have no clue what people would actually want from this channel. I just wanted a place to put my campaign diary, and if people like it, that's great. I like that. I like that you like it, and that's awesome to me. So if nothing else, that is greatly appreciated. So if you enjoyed this, be sure to drop a like down below, leave a comment if you tell me that you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this as well and you want to see more. And I guess that about does it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.